All right, Big Bang. Today is Thursday. It is June 5th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. I am here with Jerry Thornton. Jerry Thornton, a longtime Barstool blogger. And the last time you were on, Jerry, we talked the Karen Reed situation. A lot has happened since then. I just looked it up. We talked in June of last year, June 13th to be exact. And a lot has happened since then. So welcome back. And I'm kind of interested to get back into this because it's sweeping up the whole nation.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was a fun conversation the last time, and yeah, a lot has happened, and yet where are we? We're right back to square one. It's like that model of the universe that if you go in for infinity, you just end up in the same spot. We've circumnavigated the entire Karen Reed cosmos just to find ourselves standing right where we were this time last year.
Yeah, we definitely have, and I think Jerry, obviously, you've been blogging about a lot of it on the Barstool site, and you live in Mass. And so you're kind of boots on the ground. So I think it's an interesting perspective, obviously.
Yeah, and I grew up in the very county, Norfolk County, where this happened. I actually have a lawyer friend who's been a defense attorney, who's also a former prosecutor, who has been convinced from the beginning that Karen Reed is guilty AF. And he got jury duty on this thing. He had to show up, and because it was over 4, 6, maybe 8 days. And he walked in and everyone's like, what are you doing here? It's like he just got randomly did not get impaneled, needless to say, with his strong feelings. So, I guess maybe we can kind of go over the real broad strokes because you can get so lost in the weeds. There are attorneys on YouTube who broadcast this live for 7.5 hours a day. Trust me, when I was working for the court system, which I was a badge monkey for 17 years until, I was able to be the only guy who ever left to go talk about sports and drivel like that for a living. I don't think I spent 7.5 hours in any given day paying attention to the proceedings going on in front of me. I don't know how these people do it. And there's just so much detail. You can also skim the surface of it, but maybe I could just kind of go over as a prelude, like the competing theories on the case.
Yeah, we could do that, and then we could get into. I'm under the impression that if you're listening now, you're probably somewhat up to speed in the case, especially because this is a part 2, and that HBO doc. A lot of people watch that, so we could kind of take off after there. But yes, please give us the general basis here for people that aren't maybe.
Yeah, kind of the elevator pitch. So the Commonwealth is is not in dispute is that a bunch of people, cops, their friends, their family, were out drinking in the night of a blizzard in late January 2022. One cop invites John O'Keefe, who's the victim in this, to his house, and his girlfriend Karen Reed drops him off. And if you're the Commonwealth, you believe at that point they had been fighting. She backed her car up on purpose, and that's key. Intentionally said, okay, now's my chance to straight up murder this guy, and slam into him and left him for dead. And he's not found till, that was like at 12:30 at night. He's not found till like 6 something the next morning. What the defense is saying, and really what a huge segment of the public is saying, there's a whole Free Karen Reed movement. They're out there with signs every day. They're saying that he went into the house, things went sideways, bad blood ensues, a fight breaks out, he gets attacked, probably the family dog, the German Shepherd, jumps in there. They don't know what to do. In a panic, they drag him out into the spot in the front yard where he was eventually found dead, and left him there, maybe to blame a snowplow driver as coming by. But then at some point, the light kicked in and they said, okay, why don't we blame it on Karen Reed? She's not one of us. I should point out 2 things. One is very important. John O'Keefe was a very good human. His sister died, and a short time later, her husband died. They had 2 young kids. He took them in and raised them as his own. And he and I had a mutual friend, a good friend of mine. When his father passed away, John O'Keefe and his dad came to his house and sat with him for hours. Like, by all accounts, this was a man who deserved to die an old man, happy in his bed, surrounded by loved ones, and never got that opportunity. 2, Canton is a weird town. I've had friends who live there for long periods of time, and it's just there's more connections, more incest goes on in there than in King's Landing in Westeros. And so that's all part of this. Like, so that's how the cover-up conspiracy theory happens, that he died in the house. They pulled him out there, left him to die. And one of the people in the house, and I kind of took way too long to mention this when I talked to you before, woman who's the sister-in-law of the cop who owned the house. Her sister is the woman who owns the house. She Googled at some point, and that's in dispute, when she Googled how long to die in the cold on her phone. She argues it was at 6 a.m. after they found him. The timestamp seems to indicate that it was like 2 a.m. or whatever, not long after he allegedly was struck and killed. So that's in the broad strokes. That's where we stand.
Yeah, that leads me to, I made a couple points after watching the whole thing, and then obviously towards the end here we'll get into where we stand now, because I haven't been following. I know some people have been watching every live stream, so we'll get into that. But that's the first thing, the text message. If you watch that doc, I don't see how you could have any choice but to believe that you just got to throw all that out, because it doesn't seem like we're ever going to get a resolution on when she Googled that damn thing. Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, they've got competing experts, and it's, I have a term for something like this. It's a confusopoly. Like, you just think, you check your phone. Oh, this is the time I got that text. You wake up in the morning, you get a message from someone. Oh, okay, he texted me last night at 11:45 or whatever. No, that's not what it is. That's completely inaccurate, depending on who you listen to. And if I'm a juror, like, it's making my hair hurt to listen to them talk about data points. And if you look at this and extrapolate from that, and you show up for jury duty, you ought to be promised there's going to be no math on this test, but there's tons of math. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Keep going.
Oh yeah. That was, you brought it up. So that was one of my notes I took here. Another note I took, why? So the sister, one of the kids, remember said she was going to get picked up, and the brother showed up to the house, and she's like, "No, I'm going to stay," and he just left. Remember that?
Yeah. It's one of those little data points along the way that you make sense of that, and that those people who were coming and going at that point. And by the way, this is a blizzard, and it's after midnight, and there's an expression I believe in. I don't live it, but it's nothing good happens after midnight.
Yeah.
And this, apparently people who are coming and going said that alternately that they saw a car driven by a woman, SUV, I should say, Lexus SUV, driven by a woman with the dome light on, no man inside. Okay, yeah. So she did she hit him and then drive away, or not hit him and drive away? There's people that have connections. Like one of the first responders, ambulance driver, she shows up and she's asked, "Do you know Caitlin Albert, who was the daughter of the homeowners, who was Brian Albert?" And this is in the first trial, and her answer was, "Well, I went to school with Caitlin Albert." And within minutes, the internet produced like 36 photos of them together at spring break, in hot tubs, at the beach,
really?
At parties, bachelorettes, whatever. And as I said to a friend of mine, who lived in Canton for a long time, we talk about this case all the time. I said, "You and I have been best friends since first grade. At no point would I ever say, I believe I know somebody by that name. And also, there aren't as many pictures of you and me together as those two." And again, we've known each other since we were 6. So, it's all these little lies, these half-truths. That's what fuels the conspiracy theories. People just playing dumb on certain things. And, okay, Jen McCabe, who is the sister-in-law who Googled how long to die in the cold, she does not deny that. She deleted that Google search, which is curious. She... when the FBI came, because they were investigating the investigation, and the FBI showed up, and she lied about her name, asked if she could make some phone calls, made like 5, and then told the feds that she made 2. one was to her husband, one whatever. So again, why do you lie to the feds anyway? That's a bad idea every time it's tried. And if you're just a witness to a thing, why are you orchestrating all this? Like, she at one point over the span of like a couple of days made like 20 phone calls to people. I haven't made 20 phone calls in the last 5 years probably. And why do you call instead of text? Because there'll be no recording of what you said. No one's going to be able to retrieve that. In addition, so Brian Albert, again, the homeowner, there's an ATF agent involved in here, and I'm going to apologize about how many Brians there are. There's a lot of bald cops, and there's a lot of Brians. It's like history where they're all named like Scipio, or every woman was a Cleopatra or whatever. So Brian Albert owns the house. Brian Higgins had been texting, and they really got into this in that documentary that you mentioned. Flirty texts back and forth with Karen Reed, and by the way, the most cringeworthy text of all time.
Jesus.
I mean, I'm out of the flirting game, buddy, but I like to think if need be, I'd have better game than that. I'd be able to like advise a friend of mine, don't just keep asking her when she started liking you. Like, why don't you pay her a compliment or something? But he couldn't do that. So there's video of them security video of them at the bar before this all happened. And there's an account called Microdots. They're on Twitter, and it's a YouTube channel that broke that footage down like I've never seen anything. I mean, the cliche is to say this is a Proctor film. Now, this is more like, frame by frame, trying to decide like when a guy lost possession. Did he get his knee down, or was he across the goal line? It's like that.
Yeah.
And you can see this Brian Higgins, texting I got to stop saying that. Texting Karen Reed while he's 3 feet away from, like, well, huh? What's up? Like, why she wasn't talking to him. And then later on, he's gesturing towards O'Keefe, like, kind of has that a-hole posture, like he's ready. He wants to go. Mm-hmm. Come with me. And there's another Albert. The Brian Albert is a Boston cop. His brother, Chris Albert, is a Canton cop. So he's a townie cop. And he grabs Higgins by the arm and like shoves his arm down, like, stop it, knock it off. So again, just more fuel to the fire if you're someone who looks at this and says, this was sketchy as hell and I don't trust the investigation.
Yeah, and there's a ton of that, because I like started off and I'm like, man, I don't know. Karen saying like, what kind of criminal mastermind would I be? Not a very good one. Duh. Well, it's like, yeah, not many people are good criminal masterminds. That's kind of the point. That's why people get caught all the time when they murder someone, right? So it's not surprising that someone who would be drunk would just make a rash decision and just leave someone in the snow if that happened, right? That's how I interpreted that. It's like not a very good criminal mastermind. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't mean to. So that's the first thing I saw where it's like, of course you wouldn't be good.
And if you're someone who's convinced of her guilt, and okay, there's a logical basis for it. I don't deny that. It's just that two things. One, they always hang their hat on the fact that she was drunk. Okay, well, it sounds to me like you're arguing towards a car accident, which isn't homicide. Well, it's manslaughter, but it's not a murder. A murder is, this was what you set out to do. And then you always hear, and this was big in the documentary, was her saying, I hit him. A lot of doubt about whether she actually did, because a lot of the people who have testified that she heard, I hit him, never wrote it in a report, didn't mention it to the police, didn't mention it when the FBI was asking questions, didn't say it in front of the grand jury. It just kind of dawned on them when they were sitting in the witness stand for the first trial. Also saying I hit him is not an admission of guilt. I mean, if you accept that she's hammered and hungover and hysterical, okay, you can't convict her on that. And one of the people testified that, so they got the dashboard camera, and what do you see here? And, the police are outside of the hood of the car, and they're talking to her, and like, yeah, that's the moment where she said, I hit him. And no one reacts. Like, okay, by your argument, she just confessed to a crime, and the cop who's talking to her just went about his business, as if, okay, this is this lady and she's distraught or whatever. You didn't go, what? Wait, you hit him? Okay, hold on. You have the right to remain silent.
Yeah.
He didn't put the cuffs on her. He didn't take her into custody. I think he just sat her in the car so she could get out of the elements and be hysterical and not, out of earshot or whatever. But so much of it hangs on her admitting that she had way too many drinks for someone who probably weighs 80 pounds and said, I hit him. And by the way, that documentary, her lawyers might be doing a good job, but they got to get her in front of away from a microphone. Holy smokes. It's just like every time she talks, she doesn't do herself any favors. And it was even weird in that doc how they have them in their office strategizing. And I guess maybe they were trying to go for the effect of, hey, look at us. Look at how good and professional we are, and we're digging into this case. But it really came off to me like a slicker version of one of those commercials for the accident lawyer where it's like, we're going to get our client every dollar they have coming to them. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing a documentary when you got this defendant fighting for her life in court? It makes no sense.
Yeah, and obviously from their perspective is they want to shine a light and point it at, the Alberts and every party involved that was in that house, right? But in a weird way, getting to see more of Karen and her personality and how her interactions are, like I agree with you. It kind of more so hurt things just from my public opinion. I don't know shit, but I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah, your focus ought to be on, maybe just because I'm wearing a Belichick t-shirt, but your focus should just be on winning the game, right? Like not playing grab ass with the press, not trying to get good publicity. The only opinions that count should be the 18, when this is over with, 12 people who don't have a dog in the fight, no pun intended, and are just there to decide it. It's not like what me or you think while we're watching HBO before we go flip to Curb Your Enthusiasm reruns or whatever. Like, what does public opinion matter once it gets to trial? Maybe before it's super important to get the world on your side. People are donating money. They're paying for the defense. And, all those people out there with carrying the signs, I just think they should stand down now and just let the jurors do their jobs. Let the attorneys let the system play out. That's how we decide guilt or innocence in this country. I mean, not to get on a soapbox, but I really believe the system is as good as there has ever been. And it doesn't help to be hearing people screaming out in the street or yelling at John O'Keefe's family. For the love of God, they were yelling at his family when they go in and out of the courthouse. Like, stop, just act like human beings.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I want to go back because I just pulled up this girl's name, Jerry, Juliana Nagel. She was the son's friend who was over there doing whatever, hanging out, right?
Yes.
Do you remember who I'm talking about now?
Yes, and she
said she was leaving in the late hours, and her brother came to pick her up. And when their brother got there, she's like, "Oh no, I'm going to stay." How is there no more clarity about why she would stay? Right? If someone left a snowstorm to go pick someone up after midnight, and then you got there and they're like, "No, I'm going to stay," that feels like a bigger deal to me because that is. It's just weird, right?
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't clocked that to the extent that you did. That's a W in your column because it's one of those subtle little things that might not point to, guilt or innocence, but when you add them all up, people weren't acting the way you would expect people to act in that situation, including, yeah, come pick me up, and now that you're here, now that you're driven through this blizzard, piss off. I don't need you anymore.
Right? Could you imagine doing that to one of your siblings? Like they would have been like, "No, get in the fucking car. Like we're leaving. I came to pick you up." Like right, nothing exactly. Short of like being like, "Hey, no, like I really can't leave. I can't talk about." I don't know, and I'm theorizing here, obviously.
Right.
But nothing short of that would have like been like, "All right, I guess I'll leave."
Right, and that's how most trials really are decided. Again, I worked hundreds of them, and I can tell you two things. One, jurors really do try to do a good job. No one really wants jury duty. I get that. But once there, people have reverence for it. My own brother tried to get out of it, couldn't, wouldn't even tell his wife about the trial until it was over. Like, he kept every oath. He didn't pay attention to it on the news. People, and he was an irreverent guy, but he had reverence for this. And the other thing is, most trials, the vast majority of them, almost all, come down to, who did you believe? You know, like, everyone wants that smoking gun, right? Every episode of NCIS or whatever is, oh, look, I found this hair fiber sample on the button of this person, and oh, the case is blown wide open. It's never that. It's always, okay, who do you believe? Who's telling the truth? Who seemed more plausible to you? Who seemed like they were trying to hide something? Because there's always going to be competing truths, and it's really all about human nature and being able to read people. It's not at all unlike being at the table at the World Series of Poker, right? You just have to get that sense of when someone's full of it or when someone's being forthright and honest with you.
Hey guys, DraftKings, the NBA Finals are finally here. They play tonight, and this is your last shot to win some real cash before the season ends. The simplest way to get in on the action is by downloading the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more players for your favorite team, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. No gimmicks, no weird rules, just ball. Nail your picks, and you're heating up. Pick 6 brings upside with payouts up to 500 times. Ready to make your finals run? The Pick 6 app is live in a ton of states, including Texas, Cali, Georgia, Missouri, and lots more. And get this, all new Pick 6 customers will instantly get $50 in bonus picks on just a $5 entry. So don't miss your last shot to win some cash this NBA season. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code DOGWALK. That's code DOGWALK. New customers play $5, get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Ride the upside only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Yeah, definitely. And another thing that kind of like raised up the radar that I thought was one of the weirdest aspects of the people that were in the house was, I wish there was a way to tell what bedroom that the Alberts slept in, because I mean, you know, too, like, there's just it's hard to believe that a police officer would not wake up and go and see what the hell's going on, right? Do you agree with me on that?
1,000,000%. It wasn't just lack of curiosity. It was aggressive incuriosity from the people in the house. And there are photos of the scene where there's somewhere between 6 and 9 emergency vehicles with the lights going. And apparently they didn't even notice. And furthermore, and there's a name that we haven't mentioned yet, but he's central to all this, and that's Michael Proctor, Massachusetts State Trooper, the lead investigator. He didn't knock on the door. He didn't ask anything of the neighbors. There was a cop, like a lieutenant, across the street. They went to his house only to borrow some red Solo cups for collecting blood samples in the snow, and paper shopping bag. And that's what they did. They apparently had a Ring camera. Everyone has a Ring camera.
Yes.
They didn't collect any. And I can promise you that if they had a camera across the street that showed this SUV gunning it, backing up at maximum speed, warp factor 11, and striking and killing a police officer, we'd all have seen it by now, and that this thing never would have gone to trial. So they didn't knock on the door. They didn't ask the Alberts. The Alberts didn't come out. They didn't show even the slightest bit of interest. And there's an old Sherlock Holmes story called The Dog That Didn't Bark. And it wasn't like they knew it had to have been the homeowner that did it, because his dog didn't bark as he would have if it was anyone else. They had a German Shepherd named Chloe. John O'Keefe has marks all up and down his arm, which the state says, oh, that was from the shattered taillight. But my eyes and the eyes of really should be anyone who's not biased in this says, oh, those are bite marks or claw marks. They're all up and down his arm, and they're parallel to each other, more or less. The dog didn't bark. Again, no one looked out the window. And the Albert's bedroom, from what I understand, was the corner of the house closest to where he was found. And by their own admission, like they weren't asleep all night long. In fact, okay, so there's a lot of butt dialing going on here. So the aforementioned Jen McCabe, the How Long to Die in the Cold lady, she called John O'Keefe's phone like 8 times in a short period of time, which to me sounds like they're trying to find his phone, right? Everything went pear-shaped on them. He loses a shoe. They can't find his phone. We got to find this. We got to put it where he is. So she's calling him. She said those were all just butt dials, which means she dialed it accidentally and then hung up accidentally before it went to voicemail. And really the crux of this, the biggest lie I can't get past is, so Albert gets a text from Higgins. I'm sorry, a butt dial at 2:30 in the morning. So Higgins butt dials him. He butt dials him back. What was Higgins doing when he butt dialed him? Oh, he was asleep and the phone was on his nightstand. Okay, lie number one. The bigger lie is that Albert said his return butt dial was while he was making sweet, sweet love with Mrs. Albert. Well, I can tell you, I've been married for 31 years. No married man who's been married more than a few months is getting it at 2:30 in the morning. Not plus or minus 5 hours of 2:30 in the morning is some guy getting that after a night of drinking, especially. But that's his excuse, and he's sticking with it. Nope. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you bring your common experience into the courthouse. You don't leave it at the courthouse steps. When was the last time you and your spouse were doing it at 2:30 in the morning? I rest my case, Your Honor. I don't want to reveal too much about my personal life. I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, you gotta leave some. It's yeah, man. I don't know. Like I finished that and I came in here today. I was like, well, going through all that, I think she probably did it. But now I just even talking through this, now I'm back on the other side. Now it's truly a whirlwind.
Sure. And the thing about Proctor is that he got fired from his job. He was disgraced because they found his texts to friends of his, other law enforcement guys, some of them who have already testified in the first trial and in this one, where he was just talking crap about Reed. I mean, really vile, unprofessional stuff. I mean, none of us should have our texts revealed to the world, right? I mean, my chance of being on the Supreme Court passed about 1,000 inappropriate texts ago and bad jokes or whatever. Okay, that's to my friends. I'm not investigating a murder and saying the stuff about the only suspect I've even been willing to consider for a hot second. And, among the things that, he dropped a C-bomb on her. She's got a balloon knot. It's leaky. It leaks poo. She's not hot. I've looked for nudes on her phone. So he got fired. Where this is really weird is that he hasn't been called to testify. He was in the first trial. Brian Albert was called in the first trial. Brian Higgins was called in the first trial. We haven't seen them yet. And the prosecution rested at the end of last week. And we're not really sure that the defense is going to call them either, which is bizarre to me. Like, how do you not want to put this guy in front of the jury and do what they did in the first trial, which is make him read the texts? And a lot of the YouTube lawyers are arguing, it's going to make them sympathetic to the jury. I'm like, really? So we're not going to, we just want the jury to be vaguely aware of this like dark, mysterious menace, like he's Sauron of Canton, Massachusetts. Like you never get to see him. Like, okay, that's, I don't get the logic of it, but I don't have a law degree, so I'm not one to judge. But a couple of things about Albert and Higgins, they each were about to be handed an order to preserve their phones during this whole process, the whole build up to this. On the same day, the day before, they each destroyed theirs. And Higgins was driving through an Air Force base on Cape Cod and he took the phone and took out the SIM card, broke that up, put the phone into one trash, put the SIM card into another. And I think on military bases, they like burn their trash or whatever. And he said, well, I was just driving through. Well, you destroyed your phone. Well, my phone was disposed of. And like, what do you mean was disposed of? Like, what would it take its own life? Like he was talking in this weird passive tense. Again, it's more of the half-truths. I don't really want to give you a straight answer. And that's part of why this conspiracy thing just will not go away. Every time they have a vague answer, it just increases it.
Yeah, that military base thing stuck out a lot for sure. It's like, what if this wasn't it? You got to think there was something on that phone that he didn't want getting out there.
Right. And it could, I asked my friend who thinks that she's guilty, and he said, well, now that you've heard the text, you're wondering why he doesn't want that stuff to get out? I'm like, okay, revealing to the world that you're awful at digital flirting is one thing, but to destroy evidence in a murder investigation, I would think that would sort of trump that. Again,
yeah, I would say the public humiliation is much easier to deal with versus, being put on trial after this and, facing a murder charge for sure.
Exactly. And, no one disputes that she reached out to him first, and people say, well, that's just evidence more of her guilt. Okay, maybe that's how you look at that. But she didn't destroy evidence. She gave her phone over to the Stadies. She probably shouldn't have done that, given the fact that now we know that he was combing through looking for nudes and whatever. And so in the last couple of days, there's been some wild testimony. And I wrote this on Wednesday on the Stool, how a lot of this, real life is usually pretty boring. Scripted television is a million times better. That's why they script reality TV without question. This thing, though, 2 out of every 3 witnesses are either entertaining or peculiar or eccentric or just can't hide their contempt for the lawyers. The whole thing, it's like an Aaron Sorkin screenplay. I swear to you. So they had this police woman. She was like a rookie, and she was in Canton. Kelly Dever, kind of looks like Anne Hathaway, but straight up has the personality of Aubrey Plaza, of every Aubrey Plaza character. Like, she's April Ludgate to a T. And so the story with her is she was working at the Canton headquarters when they brought in the SUV, and it was put in the Sally Port. And she was on that night on dispatch. And so she saw on the screens that Brian Higgins, who, again, a witness, at the very least, a witness to this murder, he shows up with the Canton chief of police, a guy named Berkowitz. And they're alone in the Sally Port with the SUV, which to them is a murder weapon. And they're there by themselves. And she saw this, and her exact quote when the FBI started looking into this was, yeah, they were there for a wildly long time. Again, a lot of people think Higgins is a suspect. At the very least, he was at the bar the night when this happened, and he was at the house probably, and they leave him alone with the SUV. And over the intervening days and weeks, more and more pieces of the taillight were found at the scene. They weren't found right away. They just kept coming up with more pieces. The implication obviously being that they broke up the taillight and then just scattered the pieces to go, oh, look, we've got more. See, she's hit him so hard, she shattered her taillight. So this woman, this Kelly Dever, tells it to the FBI, then transfers to the Boston police. As a reminder, the homeowner at the house at 34 Fairview, Brian Albert, is a Boston police officer, like a decorated, officer and with a lot of experience. She gets a job now at the Boston PD for a substantial pay raise. She then, in short order, gets a meeting with the commissioner. Now, unless you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Dark Knight Rises and you get to meet, Commissioner Jim Gordon, this apparently never happens, where just some low-level entry patrol officer gets to meet the commissioner. And by her admission, he told her, do the right thing and we'll all stand by you. Surprisingly, shortly thereafter, and this is all public record, public employees' salaries are readily available online. She get another substantial pay raise. She went from making, I don't have the exact numbers, but let's say like 30% less than the average patrol officer to 7% more in this short span of time, and changed her story and then said, you know what? No, they presented me with evidence that I was wrong about them going in the Sally Port and being alone with the alleged murder weapon. I was mistaken. They showed me my time card and I was never actually there.
Oh, Jesus. And this has all been unearthed in this new trial.
Yes, in the beginning part of this week. And I, not just because I want the clicks, but I want the clicks. I posted videos from Twitter of her testimony, and it's wild. Like the defense counsel kept mistakenly calling her Miss Deaver, and she's like, well, I like you can't remember my name. I misremembered what time I was there. Like, just super catty and staring daggers at him, and just to get her to admit. So there were cameras in the Sally Port. She's like, well, why wouldn't there be? I mean, like that's where you take prisoners in and out. Well, are there? Well, I mean, we take prisoners. Like, she just couldn't say yes. It's like everything has to be a fight. And then more recently, this officer from the town of Dighton, which is not in this county, it's down the highway a little bit. He testified, who has no dog in this fight. Never worked with any of these people before, never worked with this district attorney's office before. Dighton is where Karen Reed's house is. And he gets a call from this state trooper leading the whole investigation. Hey, can you coordinate with us? We need to go tow the car at this address. And he's doing his job. He goes, yeah, okay, sure. So while they're doing all this and he's supervising getting the tow truck in the driveway or whatever, he sees the back of her SUV and he says, yeah, there's a small crack in the taillight. How big? It's about the size of a dollar bill, maybe 5-6 inches, 2 by 3 inches or whatever. And they show a picture of how it appeared in the reports in this case, where it's all shattered. There's no red glass left there. It's just the reflection underneath. And he goes, no, that is absolutely not what it looked like that day, which is like a bombshell, because this is a guy who has no reason to lie. He doesn't give a tuppeny damn if any of these people, live or die. He's not there to protect their careers. He just told the truth, and he just came off with that integrity that it's really hard to dispute. And the prosecutor got his chance at him, and he just says, would you say memory is faulty sometimes? Like, what? That's all he could do. Like, sometimes human memory is fallible, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I guess. And meanwhile, one of his witnesses, and I know I'm rambling here, but one of his expert witnesses lied on his resume about a degree that he not only doesn't have, but he's been working on his bachelor's for 17 years. And he was a crackpot, like Southern accent. His face was bright red the entire time. He's got this weird little tuft of hair, like a soul patch right in the middle of his forehead. And again, it feels like fiction. It's too wild and too entertaining to just be another court proceeding. It's surreal.
Hey guys, it's a new season, but it's always truck season at your local Chevy dealer. ChevyDriveChicago.com has all of the information you need to research your future Chevy truck and locate a dealer near you. Maybe you're looking for something a little smaller for summer. Street parking can be tough. I know that. You're trying to get to, the new hot restaurant in the West Loop. Well, the Chevy lineup of SUVs has it all. They got great styles at great prices. You'll look good and feel good about what you're driving. If an EV is what you need, your local Chevy dealer is ready to take you for a test drive and show you all of the latest technology in these top-tier electric SUVs. All you got to do is head to ChevyDriveChicago.com to learn more and find your dealer today. And It's really that simple. Like I said, they got you covered whatever you want. Maybe you're looking forward to tailgate season. You want that Silverado. Silverado truck is a beautiful vehicle. You'll be happy. You'll be riding in style. You'll be comfortable. And you'll be ready for all the features that you need if you need it for work. So go check that out one more time, ChevyDriveChicago.com, and learn more today. So those are the two biggest things that you've seen that has supported the defense, really.
Yes, and the defense is only really just begun. And they've had experts, and they're starting to call them and so on. But really, between the cop from another town whose story hasn't changed an iota, and then this other cop who was there but has changed her story, and every time she does, she gets another huge bump in pay. We just keep peeling back the layers of the onion, buddy, and it just keeps getting more strange.
Also, did they note if the dog is now dead or what's going on with the dog? I know they got rid of it, but I didn't see anywhere that they put the dog down or anything like that. Did you?
They haven't proven that they haven't. You know what I mean? Like, if it's in question that they said the dog was rehomed is the expression for it. And most people say, yeah, the dog's in a landfill somewhere or it's ashes, but they haven't produced the dog. Like, why not just make that go away by just going, come on in? Like, Chloe the German Shepherd doesn't necessarily have to take the stand, raise your right paw, but, at least just say, yeah, how about just a proof of life photo? Have Chloe with, like, holding up today's newspaper or something like that, like they do with hostages. But no.
Then once they find Chloe, she's going to have no teeth, and then we'll never, Chloe will just run away.
And there's a lot of dispute about whether or not there's no dog DNA on the wounds, which has been said. A lot of people say, no, they didn't even check his wounds for dog DNA. They sent his clothes to a lab in California. Now, I can read a map, and I know that there's a lot of states with labs between Massachusetts and California. Why they did that, it's really curious. And again, just Chloe has a Twitter page that when I first was trying to be as neutral as possible on this, Chloe from Vermont was like throwing shade at me. Like, oh, Jerry Thornton thinks that she's guilty, blah, blah, blah. And then when I started coming around on it, I started getting like positive tweets from Chloe. So I was like, just good girl, Chloe. You're a good girl. Somebody pet that dog. No, there's stories that haven't really been brought into evidence about Chloe, for one, that they dug up a section of the subfloor of the basement, which is a strange thing to do, that they filled in their swimming pool. And what we do know is they quickly put the house on the market and sold it at way undervalue, like quickly sold it. So again, are those the actions of someone that says, boy, tragic that this guy I invited to my house was killed out front before he ever made it in? Or does that seem to you to be the actions of someone that has a thing to hide?
Yeah, those are all details that I didn't know. It wasn't covered in the doc, and I haven't been super locked into
and it hasn't come into evidence either. So, you learn not to believe everything that is said on social media, shocking as I know that is.
A question for you too, Jerry, is the original tipster. I think they said his name was Mike. Do you remember that? The original tipster where they're like, hey, you guys might want to look into what was happening in that house more.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly frank with you. That is lost to memory. I really don't even know. Because this thing heated up before it even crossed my radar. And I asked my buddy I mentioned from Canton about it. And it was like when you ask like a gamer about some like online realm where they're a 7th level elf wizard or something. Like it pulled this thread. And an hour later, he's still telling me, and then there's this. And then I'm like, who are all these Bryans and bald cops or whatever? So it's been my challenge to present this on Barstool in a way that's sort of compartmentalized and maybe the people can follow the narrative. And even still, I find myself like forgetting things and talking in a circular logic. So, Mike, whoever that is, I imagine he alerted perhaps Turtle Boy, who's the blogger who's been, really he's been the tip of the spear on this for a long time, like really from the beginning. I just feel like, my job is to take stuff from him, from other people, try to sift through it all and just put it together in a compelling narrative. And, based on the traction that the blogs are getting, I guess I'm succeeding, but every couple of days is another adventure.
Has Karen or the team reached out to you?
No. I wonder if I'd be receptive to it.
Yeah,
I really like we have friends of friends. I've talked to people online that have had dinner with them and have faced similar situations in the same town, with the same district attorney's office, whatever. But yeah, I really haven't thought about reaching out to them either. I kind of just like sitting back and watching the whole crazy train go by, and really it all comes down to the jurors. People say that you look at their body language, and a lot of them are like not buying what the state is selling, but we thought that the first time, and it ended up being a hung jury.
What's the general consensus of the public court of opinion around masks? Like when you go to the grocery store, and I'm sure people are talking about it. What does it feel like?
Oh, it's huge. This is us exporting mass hole culture to the world. It really is. Between like sidebar, Your Honor, and then there was one in the first trial where they were trying to get a guy to come out to the bar, and he was like, it's Saturday night, it's snowing, I don't feel like it. Well, come on, pussy. Come on. Hey, Sully's here. And I that part killed me, because you could walk into any bar in my town and go, hey, Sully, and 75% of the heads are going to turn. What do you need? I was drinking Jameson and gingers. Oh, it's so massive. In fact, the new prosecutor in this thing was Whitey Bulger's defense lawyer.
Huh.
Like, you just can't make it up. So the general consensus really is that she's not guilty. I mean, there's some vocal people saying that she is, and they're invested in it. But, when I live in a beach town where, people come up, they're seasonal. And when I haven't seen them for months, the first thing they want to talk about is Karen Reed. I was at Tom Brady's Patriots Hall of Fame induction at Gillette last year. I had a team employee come up to me and just go, I'm glad practice is early. I can't wait to get back and watch the trial. I had like media guys, I had total random strangers stopping me like, hey, like what you doing about Karen Reed? Like, how did I become the Karen Reed guy? But this is us. This is how we operate, for better or worse. It's all about connections and favors, and there's always an element of corruption to everything that goes around here. That's why they give Oscars to Scorsese and Christian Bale for being in The Fighter or whatever. This is why Mark Wahlberg's a star, because we can tap into just how insane this whole region of the country is.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating for sure.
And it's still got a long ways to go. That's the crazy thing. We're just past halftime. Like the defense just received the ball to start the third quarter, and who knows? This might even go to overtime like the first one did.
Is Alan Jackson still representing her?
He is. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
She's got a team. Alan Jackson's one. There's a guy Yannetti, and there's this guy Robert Alessi, who's just super aggressive, and they all kind of have their specialties, and whether they're doing a great job or not, I don't know. It's some of their strategies weird to me, but then I'm not a lawyer. It all just comes down to it. 12 people, good and true, who weren't able to get out of jury duty are gonna perceive this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's at this juncture, as far as I can see, you could disagree. It's hard to see anything but an acquittal, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I've been wrong about that kind of thing before, even just playing that game in my head while I was sitting in the courthouse. Like, just okay, I wonder. It seems like this is pretty shut and open and shut case, and you're either wrong or they deliberate for days on end before they can reach a verdict. It's the most fascinating thing in the world because no one's privy to know what's going on inside that room once the door shuts. The idiots like me and the badges and the giant bellies hanging over their state issued belts take an oath that they're going to guard the door and no one's going to go in or out without their knowledge, and they stick by it. So in the meantime, I guess it's good for business. It's June's a slow news month, and this thing is just a fire hose of information that's going every single day.
Is there any date where they should kind of get to a resolution here? Or do you know? Is this going to go past the 4th?
Like I said, we've got about a half a week of the defense's presentation in here, and they've said they're going to go longer than they did before. They're going to call more witnesses, whereas the Commonwealth called fewer. I think it was 50 in the first one and 38 in this one. So a lot of them are going to be repeats as well. If I had to guess, I'd say, this thing might do what it did last time, which is we got finally a mistrial declared on July 1st. I remember that date well. I think that's about what we're gunning for here, but a lot of variables there, and it's just a total guess.
And I'm not the most up to up to snuff on my court law and everything like that. What happens if it's a mistrial again?
The state can just keep taking bites at that apple.
So it could seemingly go to trial like an infinite amount of times.
Yeah, absolutely. The only exception to that would be if she's not guilty, because then you've got double jeopardy, which is right there in the Constitution. They can't try her again for the same case if she's found not guilty. But the thing is, they have no secondary theory, and they never would. I've had people say, well, do you think like if she's found not guilty, they'll go after the real killer? Like, no, like they're totally invested in this, and they would never admit that they were wrong and that they've wasted, and boy, have they wasted money. One of their experts to test like his theory about how the car might have hit this guy and killed him, purchased a Lexus SUV, the same make and model. It's like $60,000 just to run a test where he had the car back up into himself and he put blue paint on it and like saw how it smeared all over his arm. It's like in the Arrested Development. I blew myself. Like, what? You want to rephrase that. So yeah, money's no object. I think if it's another hung jury, I don't think the state would hesitate to. I think they're that much invested in it, even though no one's going to want that.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Jerry, thanks for jumping on. Where could people follow along with your reporting here? Yeah,
so I'll write in a blog or two every week, and if something really off the wall happens, I'll post a third. I don't want to overdo this, and frankly, I want to write about stuff that's easier and more fun too. But it'll be on Barstool sometime middle of the week. Certainly, I'll do a wrap up every Friday if I time permits. And I'll be posting about it on. I'm at Jerry Thornton 1 on Twitter and all the socials.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, it's always a blast to talk to you. I hope we get to do it again soon. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. That's it, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll be back on Tuesday. We will see you then.